I definitely want to start by saying thank you so very much for making time within your crazy schedule to chat with me today. So I'm looking forward to, kind of digging into things about the behind the scenes and on the screen of this riveting thriller series. Like, how amazing does it feel to have been a part of and created such a phenomenal show and series?
Well, firstly, thank you for being so kind. And yeah, it's been a pretty amazing journey. I remember the first night I heard about it. Ronan Bennett and I have been friends for many years, and Ronan called and said that he was writing a reimagined version of Dev the Jackal, and asked if I'd want to meet the producers. And I firstly said to Ronan, I made a short film with Ronan when I was starting out. He obviously wrote Top Boy, which was a kind of really a genre-defining British drama. And I knew it would be fascinating, and I asked him to tell me more, and he said, "Well, basically, I'm trying to create a world in which everyone lies about everything all the time." And I sort of felt with the original title, which I remember very vividly watching with my father as a young man, and loving, and that the promise of reimagining that, the idea of doing a contemporary version with Ronan, the idea of the world, the sort of updating of the worldview that he would bring to it, those were super exciting elements. And the fact that when I read the script, it was writing of the quality that would attract Eddie Redmayne and Lashana Lynch. It's like great writing attracts great cast, which also helps you attract great crew. And then we were brilliantly supported by Sky and Peacock and Universal, and it felt like such a, yeah, just a really unique and bold journey to go on. And it's also a lovely thing to get to the end of it and think, yeah, we made the show we set out to make.
Yeah. Did you anticipate like all of the viewers, like and audience fans' reactions to this show? Like the world just wanted more and more and more of the damn Jackal. And we got it, season two in the works as well. But did you anticipate, so much success behind this series?
I mean, I hoped for it, but you can never guarantee the response of the audience. The one thing I can say is that I always feel that part of the director's job is to be the first member of the audience, and so that when I read the material, I thought if I can dramatize this, if I can bring this to the screen in a way that allows other people to share my reaction to it, then we're going to be successful. And although I must be honest and say, when we cast Eddie and we cast Lashana, I did feel, okay, these two actors and this title, now we really have a shot at something because, the material in itself, it's so propulsive and complex and merciless, but also emotionally intriguing. And with Eddie, we had like a quintessential classic English actor, somebody who is incredibly chameleonic and complex and watchable and has movie star wattage that makes you complicit with things you might otherwise look away from. And and he was that sort of that sense of a shapeshifter. And with Lashana, we had this incredible sense of authenticity. So, then I thought we've got a brilliant thriller. We have an incredible promise of wish fulfillment that, a globe-trotting version of this type of story promises, but we also have the means to ground it in genuine character and emotion and moral complexity. So, yeah, that was pretty fabulous, actually.
And I think specifically with Eddie and Lashana, was it always a case whereas these are the two, or was that I know you're obviously not a casting director, but you hold a huge key to this puzzle, right? It just wouldn't have happened without you. But in the back of like the minds of the team, was it always Eddie Redmayne and Lashana Lynch? or was that like a long drawn out process?
No, it was not because the obviously we went Eddie first,
Okay.
and the Good Nurse had just appeared on Netflix,
Mhm.
and Eddie was playing way outside the range that we'd seen him in before, and he had a real sociopathic edge. And
Yeah.
we were all very excited about that, the discovery of Eddie's played a lot of period characters. It's a very modern drama, and we were like, if we can reconcile the Eddie that the world knows with the Eddie of this, then we're in a new space, actually, for him as an actor. And in a way, in terms of casting ancestry, as soon as we had that thought, it seemed like a really he felt like the natural heir to Edward Fox in the original. There's and actually in the original, Edward Fox is built like a greyhound. He's not built in the Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Jared Butler mode. And the character, his MO is not close combat, it's killing people from a distance. So that kind of very debonair English gentleman was something that we lent into then as the character manifested itself, and it's very particularly in the costumes. With Lashana, we knew that we wanted a to because of the like I say, the chameleonic quality of Eddie, and because the fact that the tension between truth and lies was so prevalent, we wanted somebody who could, well, firstly, we wanted a black woman who was British, felt like a modern British actress, who could deliver both cultural authenticity, physical authenticity in terms of the combat and weapons work, which she'd already demonstrated in James Bond, and the complexity and range of performance. So actually, in truth, for both, it was quite a short list, and we cast it unbelievably quickly because we went to Eddie. He read it almost immediately. He recognized that it was something he'd never done before. He signed on. Then we were going to Lashana saying, it's Dev the Jackal, it's Eddie Redmayne, it's Ronan Bennett. What do you think? And again, there was a short conversation. So
Wow. And you guys nailed it. I mean, you absolutely nailed it. I want to pivot back to the different versions of the story, the more modern, contemporary, now 2025,
yeah.
up to 2026 version of the story versus the backdated version. Is there a huge difference? You know,
Well, there, well, firstly, to say the things that we wanted to retain, the sense of like what Ronan described as cast iron plotting with an incredible build of tension and constant reversals. And if you go back to the book as well, there's a great sense in which the accumulation of detail generates an enormous sense of pressure and scale, and that almost real time ticking clock cat and mouse drama. So we wanted to keep all of that. But what we wanted to do was we wanted to expand the story so that it took place on a sort of, well, actually, the original intention was that it would take place across Europe, but of course, then a North American component opened up with the Winthrop character. So it was to internationalize the story rather than make it a manhunt in one country, but to keep the sense of the pressure and the ticking clock. We obviously knew we would have to contemporize the villain, which Ronan did brilliantly. And we wanted to, of course, because it's a 10-hour show rather than a 2-hour movie, we knew that we would have to open up the character of the Jackal a bit. That in 2 hours he can remain an absolute ghost, but in 10 hours you have to go deeper into him. And Ronan had the brilliant idea that he would have a family and that he would be a recent father. And so then what that did amazingly well was answered it answered the question of whether the Jackal had a heart, because it gave him something to lose. And so the fact that he loves his wife and adores his child dramatically changes him from the original. But of course, he also loves killing people for money. So so
money.
it makes him complex and a sort of mass of contradictions, and in a way that the original didn't have time to access. And from that we were able to lean into the idea of, like, in the original, the idea of identity and who is the jackal is more literal. In ours, we wanted to go a little deeper with that, and think about the jackal almost like an actor who's played so many roles he's not sure which one is him,
Yeah.
or he's not sure which one he cares about the most. So that was a big development, and that then sort of, you know, brought forward the idea of what is the truth, what is the meaning of truth, what is the cost of truth, does the truth exist in this world anymore? So, and also actually allowed us to amplify the whole manhunt, because we were able to develop the character. In the original movie, the LaBelle character was played by Michael Lonsdale. Was he's a great actor, but he didn't have a ton to play with. Whereas we were able to create for Bianca a parallel journey, in which you saw this woman who appears to be a polar opposite. Just we discovered, that in the sort of adrenaline of the hunt, she displayed many of the same characteristics of the jackal, so that both of them were contradictions of good and evil, and it generates a sort of what I called a pendulum of sympathy, where at different times over the 10 hours of the story, the idea of who was the hero and who was the villain flipped. And so that by the end, ideally what we wanted was that the audience would root for both characters whilst knowing only one of them could survive. So that allowed it to kind of retain punch, generate heartbreak, but also deliver kind of the entertainment that the genre requires.
This is more of, Brian, a personal, but also obviously professional question for you. When it comes to the projects that you say yes to and that you take on, do you have a preference as to whether or not the format is movie form or a series? Do you prefer working on like series versus film?
I'm driven by the quality of the writing, because you know, ultimately what you're looking for is, firstly, a story you can connect with, that you can find enough of yourself in to believe that you have the authority to tell the story and to sell it to the audience. But secondly, you're looking for material that can attract top level cast. Because two things. Firstly, it allows you much more space to push the envelope in terms of the delivery of the story, because you're surrounded by people who are operating at the highest level. And secondly, it allows you, that if the writing is strong and the actors are great actors, you have a real chance of getting an audience. And ultimately we tell stories because we want people to listen to them, and participate in those stories with us. We're not really that interested in talking to ourselves.
And in your personal time, especially like, the fact that you are a creator, do you have a certain genre of like storylines that you prefer to lean into, like when you're binge watching television or reading a book or listening to a podcast?
I do love character-driven thrillers.
Okay.
And because actually right after Jackal, I did a movie with Emma Thompson, a kidnap movie with Emma Thompson called The Dead of Winter, which is coming out in fall. And it had set in some ways it's totally different. But the overlap was, they were both thrillers with amazing characters at their heart that allowed us to bring great actors to the table. So that's clearly something I have a passion for. And I sort of feel as well, having grown up as a kid in Ireland, at a time of conflict, I'm clearly drawn to complex characters who do morally questionable things in worlds where things are not as they seem.
Yeah.
That's definitely sort of baked into my DNA, just almost as an accident of birth.
Yeah, but is it easier or more difficult for you to lean into that element of storytelling when it comes to like the morale aspect? of life. And just like you say, the things that humans will do and will not do, what's right, what's wrong, and according to who. Like, does that help you
Well,
tackle?
I think what it has done is it's created an appetite within me to investigate characters and discover their emotional lives rather than judge them. You know, if you accept that everyone has a reason, even though you don't necessarily agree with their reasons,
Yeah.
you're more able to find a human commonality with them. And I think that for me is infinitely more interesting than passing judgment on other people.
I feel like I could talk to you all day, Brian, but as I get ready to bring it to a close, congratulations on a season two.
Thank
But were
you.
you surprised? I mean, of course, you weren't surprised to see that you guys were landing a season two.
You don't you never you can never take anything for granted, but I really believe literally when I saw the first cut of episode one, even before I'd started to work with it with our
Mhm.
brilliant editor Luke Dunkley, I thought we really have something special on our hands here. And then it was just about nurturing it and improving it. And as people began to, as people in the post-production process began to get a look, it became pretty clear pretty quickly that it worked.
From your professional lens, how many seasons do you know, anticipate and or would love to see this story go on for if you can have it in your perfect world?
Well, two things I'd say is I definitely want more. And the second thing would be if I disclose too much, somebody will take a contract out of me. So
Oh,
they'll send Eddie after me.
you just cut out my last question. I was gonna say, give me some details, give me some what's going on with season two. But can you at least let me know if you guys have already began to film? I'm sure that you have.
We have not begun shooting, but I can tell you that tomorrow, Eddie and I and the producers at Carnival will be sitting down to dig into the detail of the first one, two, three, four episodes are pretty well defined, and the scouting process has begun, and the world is getting bigger. So the ambition for season two is definitely bigger and better. Uh, and I'm feeling pretty confident about landing that at the moment.
You just gave me a lot, Brian, but you also gave me a lot, and you're going to keep that contract. Brian, listen, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate speaking with you. I look forward to seeing how the series is going to perform this Emmy season. I'm ecstatic for season two, and congratulations again and in advance for all of the success the next season is going to bring forth. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And listen, I can promise you, it's going to be worth coming back for.
Oh, we're coming back.
Good. Please do. Please do. I want to have one of these interviews after season two.
uh, I'll talk to you after season two. Thank
Excellent.
you
Thank
so
you
much,
so much.
Brian. Have a
All
good
right.
day.
Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.